There comes a moment in your life when you realize that your emotions are loud, persuasive, and convincing, but they are not always honest. And if you're not careful, they will sit in the driver's seat of your decisions while truth is buckled up in the back, hoping you eventually notice it's there. Mental strength doesn't start when you stop feeling. It starts when you learn how to feel without letting those feelings run you. Because feelings are real, but they are not reliable leaders. They change with the weather, with the tone of a text message, with the way someone looked at you sideways, with the memory that surfaced when you didn't ask it to. And if you let emotions lead, your life will constantly be reacting instead of building. Some of us have been making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. We felt discouraged, so we quit. We felt rejected, so we shut down. We felt afraid, so we settled. We felt tired, so we gave up on something God was still working on. And the danger isn't that you felt those things. The danger is that you crown them as truth without ever checking the facts. Mental strength is learning how to pause long enough to ask, just because I feel this, does that make it true? Because sometimes you feel forgotten, but the truth is you're being prepared. Sometimes you feel delayed, but the truth is you're being protected. Sometimes you feel like you're losing, but the truth is God is pruning what can't go where you're going. Emotion says, I can't take any more. Truth says, you've survived worse than this. Emotion says nothing is changing. Truth says just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not moving. Emotion says I'm not enough. Truth says you were never meant to do this in your own strength anyway. Mental strength is choosing which voice gets the final word, not the loudest one, not the most dramatic one, the truest one. And let's be honest, some of us have been confusing emotional honesty with emotional leadership. You can be honest about how you feel without letting how you feel dictate how you move. You don't have to deny your sadness to be strong. You don't have to ignore your fear to be faithful. You acknowledge it, you bring it to God, and then you decide to move according to truth anyway. That's strength, that's maturity, that's growth. There are days when your emotions will wake up before your faith does. Days when you pray but still feel heavy. Days when you worship but still feel unsure. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But mental strength is refusing to let a heavy morning talk you out of a hopeful future. It's saying, I feel this, but I'm not following this. Because if you follow every feeling, you'll be exhausted from chasing moods that were never meant to lead you. Some of us have been letting offense shape our mindset. One comment, one mistake, one misunderstanding, and suddenly your whole sense of self is shaken. That's what happens when emotions are in charge. But when truth leads, you remember who you are even when someone else forgets how to treat you. You remember your value even when you're not validated. You remember your calling even when the road feels lonely. Mental strength anchors you so that every wave doesn't knock you over. Bar, and hear this, you don't become mentally strong overnight. This is built in moments. Small ones, the moment you don't clap back, the moment you don't spiral, the moment you don't quit just because it got uncomfortable, the moment you choose prayer over panic, wisdom over impulse, obedience over emotion. Those moments don't look powerful on the outside, but they are shaping something unshakable on the inside. Some of us are asking God to change our circumstances, and God is saying, I'm trying to strengthen your mind. Because if I fix everything around you, but you still let your emotions control you, you'll break under the next pressure. But if I build your inner world, you'll be able to stand no matter what the outer world throws at you. Mental strength is a gift, but it's also a responsibility. You have to practice it. You have to protect it. You have to choose it daily. That means you stop rehearsing worst case scenarios. You stop letting your thoughts run unchecked. You stop feeding fear with your attention. You stop interpreting everything through insecurity. Instead, you train your mind to come back to truth, to what God said, to what He promised, to what He's already brought you through. Because a trained mind doesn't panic easily. A trained mind doesn't collapse under pressure. A trained mind knows where to return when emotions try to pull it off course. And the truth is, the enemy doesn't need to destroy you if he can just emotionally exhaust you. If he can keep you offended, discouraged, reactive, and overwhelmed, you'll sabotage yourself. That's why mental strength matters. That's why discipline matters. That's why learning how to manage your inner world is spiritual warfare. Because when truth leads, peace follows. And when peace follows, clarity comes. And when clarity comes, you stop making decisions that you have to heal from later. You don't lose strength because you feel. You lose strength when you surrender leadership to your feelings. So feel it, name it, pray through it, and then stand on truth anyway. That's how you become mentally strong. And the moment truth takes the lead, everything else has to fall in line. There's a quiet kind of strength that develops when you finally stop taking everything personally. And I know that sounds simple, but for some of us, it's the hardest work we'll ever do because we were trained by pain, by rejection, by inconsistency to interpret everything as a reflection of our worth. If someone didn't show up, we assumed we weren't enough. If something didn't work out, we decided we must have failed. If doors closed, we told ourselves we were the problem. But mental strength is the moment you realize that not everything that happens to you is about you. Some things happen because people are human. Some things happen because timing matters. Some things happen because God sees what you can't see yet. And when you internalize everything, you turn normal life experiences into personal attacks on your identity. That's exhausting. That's heavy. And it will wear you down if you don't learn how to separate who you are from what you're experiencing. You have to understand this. Rejection is not always redirection because you did something wrong. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's alignment. Sometimes it's God keeping you from forcing yourself into spaces that would have required you to shrink to survive. And if you take that personally, you'll spend your life trying to prove yourself to people who were never assigned to hold what's inside you. Mental strength is realizing that correction is not condemnation, that feedback is not rejection, that silence is not always abandonment, that delay is not denial. When you internalize everything, every conversation feels like judgment, every pause feels like punishment, and every no feels like a statement about your value. But when truth leads, you start to see things clearly. You stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. Some of us are emotionally bruised because we keep attaching our identity to outcomes. If it works, we feel worthy. If it fails, we feel ashamed. If people applaud us, we feel confident. If they don't, we feel invisible. That's a dangerous way to live because outcomes change, people change, seasons change, but your identity was never meant to be that fragile. Mental strength anchors who you are so deeply that external circumstances can't rewrite your internal narrative. And let me say this gently, not every closed door requires self-examination. Sometimes you did everything right and it still didn't work. Sometimes you showed up, prayed, prepared, gave your best, and it still fell apart. That doesn't mean you missed God. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human, living in a world where obedience doesn't always come with instant results. And when you stop internalizing every disappointment, you give yourself permission to grow instead of condemn yourself. You don't need to carry guilt for things that were never yours to control. You don't need to assume responsibility for other people's choices, moods, or limitations. Some of us are emotionally tired because we've been trying to manage everybody's reactions while neglecting our own healing. Mental strength is releasing the burden of responsibility for things you were never assigned to fix. When you internalize everything, you replay conversations over and over in your head. You analyze tone. You overthink text messages. You assume the worst. You build entire narratives based on fragments of information. And most of the time, those narratives are fueled by insecurity, not truth. Mental strength teaches you how to pause and say, I don't have all the information, and that's okay. It teaches you how to wait instead of wound yourself with assumptions. There is freedom in learning how to say, this happened, but it doesn't define me. This hurt, but it doesn't own me. This didn't work, but it didn't waste me. When you stop internalizing everything, you stop letting moments steal your peace. You stop letting people rent space in your mind who never earned access to your heart. You stop allowing temporary experiences to make permanent statements about who you are. Some of you are stronger than you think, but you don't feel strong because you've been carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. You've been blaming yourself for things that require two people. You've been questioning your worth because someone else couldn't see it. You've been doubting your calling because the journey got uncomfortable. Mental strength lifts that weight and says, I will take responsibility for my growth, but I will not take responsibility for everyone's response to it. And hear this clearly. When you stop internalizing everything, you don't become cold. You become clear. You don't lose compassion. You gain discernment. You don't stop caring. You stop self-abandoning. You learn how to love without losing yourself. You learn how to serve without sacrificing your sanity. You learn how to listen without absorbing everything you hear. This kind of strength allows you to receive correction without collapsing, to hear no without spiraling, to experience conflict without questioning your calling. It allows you to stay rooted when things feel unstable. And that rooting doesn't come from pretending things don't hurt. It comes from knowing that pain doesn't get to define your identity. You are allowed to experience disappointment without turning it into self-doubt. You are allowed to be misunderstood without rewriting who you are. You are allowed to grow without everyone understanding your process. Mental strength is giving yourself permission to be human without punishing yourself for it. And when you finally stop internalizing everything, something powerful happens. You gain peace. Not because life gets easier, but because your mind gets stronger. You stop fighting battles that were never meant for you. You stop carrying weight that was never assigned to you. And you start walking lighter, clearer, and more confident in who you are. Because when you know who you are, not everything can hurt you the same way anymore. There's a kind of strength that doesn't come from pretending you're okay. And it doesn't come from pushing everything down and hoping it disappears. Mental strength is built the moment you decide to stop running from what hurts and start facing it with God instead of hiding from it alone. Because what you avoid doesn't vanish, it waits. It waits in your reactions, in your triggers, in your exhaustion, in the patterns you keep repeating and don't understand why. And eventually, the very thing you refuse to face will start controlling how you live. Some of us learned survival before we learned healing. We learned how to keep moving, how to smile through pain, how to function while breaking inside. And for a while, that looked like strength. But unresolved pain doesn't make you strong. It makes you reactive. It makes you defensive. It makes you guarded in places where you were meant to be free. Mental strength is not ignoring the wound. It's tending to it so it doesn't keep bleeding into places it doesn't belong. You can't heal what you won't acknowledge. You can't overcome what you keep minimizing. And you can't grow past what you keep pretending didn't affect you. Some of us keep saying, I'm over it, but our emotions say otherwise. Our trust says otherwise. Our fear says otherwise. Our patterns say otherwise. Mental strength is the courage to say, this hurt me and I need to deal with it without shame and without self-condemnation. Avoidance feels easier in the moment. You distract yourself. You stay busy. You keep scrolling. You keep serving. You keep giving. But silence has a way of exposing what noise is hiding. And when life slows down, the pain you avoided starts speaking louder. That's why God doesn't rush healing. He invites you into it. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about redeeming it so it no longer has power over your present. Some of us are afraid to confront our pain because we think it will break us. But what if the opposite is true? What if the pain you've been carrying is already breaking you slowly, and facing it is what finally sets you free? Mental strength is trusting God enough to open the door you've kept locked and believing He won't abandon you in the process. Healing requires honesty, not just with God, He already knows, but with yourself. Honest about what hurt, honest about what changed you, honest about what made you close off, honest about what made you angry, honest about what made you stop expecting more, because you can't pray your way around truth. You have to walk through it. And let's be clear, confronting pain doesn't mean reliving it every day. It means allowing God to speak into it once and for all. It means stopping the cycle where old wounds dictate new decisions. It means recognizing when you're reacting from memory instead of responding from maturity. Mental strength is noticing when your past is trying to hijack your present and choosing healing instead. Some of the behaviors you judge yourself for are actually symptoms of unhealed places. The trust issues, the control, the emotional shutdown, the overthinking, the constant need for reassurance. Those didn't come from nowhere. They were built as protection. And God isn't angry about them, but He doesn't want you living trapped by them either. Healing isn't about shame, it's about freedom. You don't heal by blaming yourself for what happened. You heal by bringing God into what happened. You heal by letting Him reframe the story you've been telling yourself. The one that says it was your fault. The one that says you should have known better. The one that says you deserved it. Mental strength is allowing truth to replace the lies that pain taught you. And hear this, healing is not linear. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel triggered. Some days you'll think you're past it. And something small will remind you it still needs attention. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Mental strength is staying committed to healing, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's slow, even when it exposes parts of you you'd rather keep hidden. God doesn't heal you to embarrass you. He heals you to restore you. He doesn't bring things up to hurt you. He brings them up to heal you. And when you stop avoiding what hurts, you stop giving it power over you. You take your authority back. You stop letting old wounds decide how close you let people get, how much you trust God, how boldly you live. Some of us are praying for peace, but peace comes after honesty. Peace comes after surrender. Peace comes after you. Stop pretending you're fine and start letting God do the deep work. Mental strength is choosing depth over denial, growth over avoidance, healing over hiding. You don't have to rush this process. You don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to be willing to feel, willing to pray honestly, willing to unlearn survival and relearn trust, willing to believe that the God who brought you through it can also heal you from it, because the pain you confront today won't control you tomorrow. Mental strength is forged in the space between what feels good and what actually grows you. And most of us don't like that space because comfort whispers promises that discipline never makes. Comfort says, you've done enough. Discipline says, you're not finished yet. Comfort says, you deserve a break from this. Discipline says, consistency is what will break this cycle. And the reason discipline feels so heavy is because it asks you to do today what your future self is begging you not to avoid. .br. We live in a world that rewards convenience, quick fixes, shortcuts, instant relief. But mental strength isn't built by what's easy. It's built by what's repeated. It's built by showing up when no one is watching, by choosing what's necessary over what's pleasant, by deciding that temporary discomfort is better than permanent dysfunction. And that choice has to be made daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes moment by moment. Some of us are stuck not because we're incapable, but because we're undisciplined. And that's not an insult. It's an invitation, because discipline is learnable. Discipline is practiced. Discipline is strengthened over time. Mental strength grows every time you do the thing you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Bar comfort will always try to negotiate with your calling. It will tell you to delay what you know you should start. It will convince you that rest is needed when what you really need is resolve. And hear me, rest is holy, but avoidance is not. Discipline teaches you the difference. It teaches you how to rest without quitting, how to pause without abandoning purpose, how to breathe without backing down. There are seasons when discipline looks like boundaries, saying no when you want to say yes, walking away when you want to explain, logging off when you want to scroll, being consistent when motivation has gone quiet. And those choices don't feel powerful in the moment, but they compound over time. You don't see the strength immediately, but one day you realize you're standing in places you used to collapse. Mental strength is choosing to train your mind instead of indulging every impulse. It's deciding not to let your emotions determine your habits. It's choosing structure when chaos feels more familiar, because some of us are more comfortable in dysfunction than we are in discipline. Not because discipline is wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar growth can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. Discipline also means being willing to disappoint yourself in the short term so you don't keep disappointing yourself in the long term. It means breaking patterns that once protected you, but now imprison you. It means being honest about what you need to stop, not just what you want to start. Mental strength requires you to be brave enough to admit that comfort has been costing you more than you realized. And let's be real. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's boring sometimes. It's doing the same right thing over and over again without applause. But that's where strength is built. Not in emotional highs, not in motivational moments, but in daily obedience, in routine faithfulness, in small choices that nobody claps for, but God notices every time. Some of you are waiting to feel ready before you act. Discipline says act first. Feelings will follow. Confidence doesn't come before consistency. It comes because of it. Mental strength is built when you move, even when fear is loud, when doubt is present, when comfort is tempting you to stay the same. You don't wait until it feels easy. You move until it becomes normal. Discipline also teaches you self-respect. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, you reinforce trust with yourself. Every time you break one, you weaken it. Mental strength grows when you learn that your word to yourself matters, that your boundaries are worth honoring, that your growth is worth protecting. Comfort will let you betray yourself gently. Discipline will teach you how to stand with yourself firmly. And there will be days when discipline feels unfair, when you're doing the work and not seeing the results, when you're choosing restraint while others choose indulgence, when you're staying consistent while others take shortcuts. Mental strength is staying the course anyway, trusting that what you're building internally will eventually show up externally, trusting that delayed results don't mean wasted effort. God often uses discipline to prepare you for what you prayed for, because the weight of blessing requires strength of mind. Without discipline, favor becomes overwhelming. Opportunity becomes pressure. Growth becomes burnout. Mental strength ensures that when doors open, you're ready to walk through them without losing yourself. Choosing discipline over comfort doesn't mean you'll never struggle. It means you'll stop being ruled by your struggle. It means you'll learn how to sit with discomfort without escaping it, how to stay present when growth feels awkward, how to trust the process even when it's stretching you. And that stretching is proof that you're expanding, not failing. You don't become mentally strong by doing what's easy. You become mentally strong by doing what's necessary until it becomes who you are. And one disciplined choice at a time, you rise. There is a point in your journey where mental strength no longer looks like pushing harder, figuring more out, or trying to manage every outcome. It looks like release. It looks like exhaling. It looks like finally admitting that control has been costing you more than surrender ever could. Because some of us aren't tired from doing too little. We're exhausted from trying to do everything. We've been carrying responsibilities God never assigned us, managing outcomes we were never meant to predict, holding on to people, timelines, and expectations with clenched fists, afraid that if we loosen our grip, everything will fall apart. But mental strength isn't found in gripping tighter. It's found in trusting deeper. And trust is not passive. Trust is a decision, a daily intentional choice to place what you cannot handle into hands that never fail. Some of us confuse control with wisdom. We think if we stay anxious, we're being alert. If we stay worried, we're being responsible. If we stay hyper aware, we're being prepared. But worry has never produced clarity. Anxiety has never produced peace. And control has never produced rest. Mental strength is realizing that surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. You were never meant to be the source. You were meant to be the steward. And when you try to be the source, you burn out. When you try to be the answer, you become overwhelmed. When you try to carry what only God can sustain, you collapse under the weight. Mental strength is knowing the difference between what requires your obedience and what requires your trust. Some of us are exhausted because we're fighting battles God already told us to put down. We keep replaying conversations, rehearsing outcomes, imagining worst case scenarios, trying to solve problems that haven't even arrived yet. And all that mental noise drowns out the peace that comes with surrender. When you trust God, you don't stop thinking, you stop spiraling. You don't stop planning, you stop panicking. Surrender doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means fear no longer gets the final say. It means you pray and still move forward. It means you release the need to know how everything will work out and choose to believe that it will. Mental strength is trusting God's character when you don't understand his timing. And let's be honest, some of us resist surrender because we've been disappointed before. We trusted and things still hurt. We prayed and the answer didn't come the way we expected. So now we hold back, we control, we guard, we overfunction. But mental strength isn't built by self-protection. It's built by faith that's willing to risk rest. You don't have to understand everything to trust God. You just have to know him. Know that he is faithful. Know that he sees what you can't. Know that he's working even when it's quiet. Mental strength is believing that silence is not absence and delay is not denial. Some of you are trying to micromanage miracles. You're asking God to bless something while refusing to release control of it. But surrender is the doorway to peace. It's saying, I'll do my part, but I won't play your role. It's understanding that obedience is your responsibility, but outcomes belong to God. And when you surrender, something shifts internally. Your shoulders relax, your mind slows down, your heart softens. Not because the situation changed, but because you did. You stopped carrying tomorrow's worries with today's strength. You stopped demanding answers before trusting the process. Mental strength is living one faithful step at a time instead of trying to leap ahead in fear. Trusting God also means trusting his ability to handle what you love. Some of us are afraid to surrender because we think if we don't worry about it, it won't be protected. But worry has never protected anything. God has. And when you trust him, you're not neglecting what matters. You're placing it in the safest care possible. There is freedom in saying, I can't control this, but I trust the one who can. There is peace in admitting this is bigger than me, and that's okay. Mental strength is humility wrapped in faith. It's knowing when to move and when to rest, when to act and when to wait, when to pray and when to release. Surrender doesn't make you weak. It makes you resilient because you're no longer depending on your limited strength. You're anchored to an unlimited source. And that kind of strength doesn't panic under pressure. It doesn't crumble under uncertainty. It stands steady because it's rooted in trust, not control. Some of the peace you've been praying for is on the other side of letting go of timelines, letting go of expectations, letting go of the need to have it all figured out. Mental strength is trusting God enough to rest in the unknown, because when you finally stop trying to control everything, you make room for God to do what only he can. There is a version of strength the world celebrates that looks loud, guarded, sharp, and unbothered. A strength that says, I don't need anyone. Nothing gets to me. I've been through too much to feel anything anymore. But that is an OT mental strength. That is armor. And armor may protect you in battle, But if you never take it off, it will slowly suffocate the very heart God is trying to preserve. True mental strength is not becoming hard. It's learning how to stay firm without losing your softness. Some of us hardened because we had to. Life demanded it. Pain forced it. Disappointment shaped it. We learned how to shut down so we wouldn't break down. We learned how to build walls so we wouldn't bleed. And for a season that kept us alive. But what once protected you can eventually imprison you if you never learn how to lay it down. Mental strength is knowing when armor is necessary and when it's time to trust again. Bitterness is often disguised as strength. Emotional distance can look like maturity. Silence can feel like control. But if you can't feel joy deeply, love freely, or trust fully, that's not strength, that's survival. And God didn't just save you to survive. He saved you to live whole, open, and healed. Staying soft doesn't mean staying naive. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or abandoning boundaries. It means your heart remains responsive instead of reactive. It means disappointment doesn't turn into cynicism. It means offense doesn't become identity. Mental strength is the ability to experience pain without allowing it to rewrite who you are. Some of us have been hurt so many times that we've confused walls with wisdom. We say, I'm just protecting my peace. But really we're avoiding vulnerability. We say, I don't expect anything anymore, but what we mean is, I'm afraid to hope again. Mental strength is not the absence of feeling. It's the discipline of choosing hope even when disappointment has given you reasons not to. It takes strength to stay kind in a world that rewards cruelty. It takes strength to stay open in a world that teaches you to close off. It takes strength to forgive when you were never given an apology. Hardness is easy. It's a reflex. Softness after pain is a choice, and it's one of the bravest choices you'll ever make. You don't have to let what hurt you become who you are. You don't have to let betrayal turn into bitterness or loss turn into hopelessness. Mental strength says, I acknowledge what happened, but I refuse to let it harden my heart. It says, I will learn, I will grow, but I will not become someone I don't recognize just to avoid being hurt again. Staying soft also means staying teachable. Hardened hearts resist correction. They deflect responsibility. They blame instead of reflecting. But a strong mind remains humble. It listens, it learns, it adjusts. It understands that growth requires openness, and openness requires courage. There will be moments when staying soft feels risky, when trusting again feels foolish, when loving again feels dangerous. But mental strength understands that the risk of becoming hardened is far greater than the risk of being hurt again. Because a hardened heart may stop pain, but it also stops joy, intimacy, and peace. God never asked you to become impenetrable. He asked you to become rooted. Rooted people bend in storms without breaking. Hardened people crack under pressure. Mental strength is flexibility anchored in truth. It's knowing who you are so deeply that nothing can steal your compassion or corrupt your character. Some of you are proud of how tough you've become, but God is more interested in how whole you're becoming. He doesn't need you guarded. He needs you healed. He doesn't need you closed off. He needs you anchored. Mental strength is not shutting the world out. It's staying grounded while moving through it. And hear this clearly. Softness does not make you weak. It makes you powerful, because it takes strength to love without guarantees, to hope without proof, to remain gentle in environments that try to make you sharp. That kind of strength doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from healing through it. When you can stand firm without becoming hardened, you reflect a strength that cannot be shaken, a strength that doesn't depend on circumstances, a strength that doesn't fade with disappointment, a strength that stays rooted in faith, wisdom, and grace. And that is the kind of strength that lasts